We saw in last week's parsha, when Binyamin came, and he saw his brother, he said he couldn't control himself, he went in the room and he started to cry. Yosef cry? What kind of guy is Yosef to cry? He's a man of the brain. So what's the man of the brain cries? Right? So you see that his emotion, as much as he used the brain to not assimilate and to not get into trouble, and that all came from the brain, and now he gets his brothers, and the brain is saying, okay, I methodically have to sit back and not tell them who I am as much as I want to, because I have to be in control. Okay? The brain was good, yeah? But then the brothers come, they don't recognize him. And this and that, and everything's going on, and he's leaving every measure for measure to make it easy in the brain, and they're still not figuring it out. And then Binyamin comes, and he can't take it anymore. He starts crying. Oh, he's getting a little emotional now. That's not Yosef's strength. That's not his strength. Yehuda's coming back and saying, you know what you're doing doesn't make any sense now. You want to take me instead of him? So he's kind of, even though he doesn't understand how much musar he's giving him, Yosef's getting much more musar. He's understanding more, I got to stop being so emotional over here, and I got to get back to my brain, and I got to stop the agenda. It was the emotion that was keeping him to, no, I'm still going to wait. Maybe they're going to come around. Maybe they're going to come around. That already was not an intellectually sound. It came to the point where the brain should have said, they ain't getting it. Give it up. You made a mistake, Yosef. They will not understand their mistake from you. Now, for that, now you got to really use your brain, and that's hard. You got a little bit too emotionally involved. Okay? So what happens? So now, finally, and that's so the depths of Yosef and the depths of Yehuda were brought out. So now Yosef reveals himself to the brothers. And the brother says, well, you can reveal yourself all you want. We were wrong. We admit we were wrong. But we're still going to kill you because you still can't be the king. Right? Now, the Malachim protect Yosef for only a little while. Yosef better say something smart and fast, so the brothers will realize that what he's saying is correct. So Yosef says, no, the one who has the heart, Yehuda, should not be the king now. Right now you need the seichel man. Right now, but not long term. And that's what he's going to say over here, where we need now the next part of the medrash to fill in the last part of the puzzle. What he said to convince them. But what he's basically going to say is, you think, and I don't have time to get through all the verses, this is a whole, if we went into the text, it would really be beautiful. But what the brothers' mistake was, here was the essential mistake going back 22 years. They thought when Yosef wanted to be the king, he had in mind being a king forever. And Yosef never intended on being the king forever, only to be temporarily the king. And temporarily, and why? So that when Yehuda would be the king, he'd be able to be a proper king. That's all Yosef ever wanted, right? Would it be better if he would have communicated it to the brothers? But again, the Torah said in the beginning of the parsha, they couldn't talk peacefully with each other. When you really know what you're trying to say and the other guy's not listening, remember, these are the emotional ones. Emotional ones don't listen. Once you say one word that gets people ticked off, then all of a sudden what happens to the rest of all your logic? They ain't hearing you. Right? They're just not hearing you. As soon as Yosef says, I should be the king, even before he says the word but, you're going to be the king? Forget it. Right? But it's only temporary. You just want to be the king. You understand? So the man of intellect, he can't get through to the people of emotion. Right? That's the problem. But now, finally, when they were revealed, and Yehuda finally comes back to being the man of emotion in a proper way. So now this is what I say. So what is the difference now in the way the mind and the heart manifest themselves? So like this, people who function out of the heart, if you feel it, you show it, If you're happy and clap your hand, right? The person who's an emotional person, he shows it. Person that's emotional, what's going on. They don't hide their emotions, right? The function of things that have to do with the heart is revealed. That's what a person of heart reveals. On the other person's hand, the person who's developing intellectually, you could look at him and he looks like a stone. You don't see anything. Those people appear to be antisocial. But really, they're very deep in thought. They're very cool. There's lots going on in the recesses of their brains, but outwards, you don't know anything that's going on. It's like a poker face. But he's thinking about lots of things, right? And those two separate things have very unique powers. there's a unique power that comes from a manifestation of exuberance and feelings. You know, you can do things with yourself by singing and be acting happy. You'll be happy, and more than that, you'll make other people happy around you, right? That's one way of functioning. There is something to be said. You know, you go to a kumsitz and they're singing and you're swaying in this, and you're able to impact on people. And that's a very beautiful, powerful thing. But there's another significant power of developing a deeper understanding, even though it's not showing itself, which is also of a lot of value. You know, so on the one hand, there are those who can sing and dance, you know, and on Purim they're dancing on the table, and another person sees and they're moved by what's being seen. And there's others who have a great mind, who could bring a very complex concept, you know, from the loftiest places and get it through their mind and turn around and explain it to a very simple person. That you need a very highly developed intellect to be able to do that to other people as well. So in serving Hashem, we have a service that functions with you show what's your feelings, and in service Hashem, you have to allow the thoughts to germinate, to come out. This is where we now come to the second set of analogies, the one who crushes the grapes and the one who what? What was the other one? The one who plants the seeds. Okay, Yehuda is what? The one who crushes the grapes. What's the function of, why do you crush the grapes? To make wine. What is the purpose of wine? What does the Talmud say? Nichnas yayin, the wine comes in. Teitzei sod, the secrets come out. Yayin, the Hebrew word for yayin, yud yud nun, Sophis is a gematria of 70, numerical value of 70. The Hebrew word sod, samach vav dal, which means secret, is also 70. So what the Talmud says is the nature of the grape is for the juice that's inside of it. So even when you're crushing the grapes, what are you doing? You're taking the inner power of the grape and you're revealing it. What's a grape really worth? What's inside of it? And what's inside of it is a powerful drink. Something extremely powerful. So Yehuda is the one who crushes the grape, meaning his forte is exuberance, it's devotion, and the manifestation of all that, because he's a man of the heart. You see, he's the man of the heart. He is the man, the plowman, who can develop the heart. That's what happens. Makes the heart soft and feeling that right. And then what happens afterwards? Then it's crushing the grapes, and which shows exuberance that comes out. It's the two steps. You need two analogies. You soften the heart, you're a man of the heart, and therefore you crush the grapes and exuberance comes out. You show it to everybody. That's very good. We need to see people excited about their Yiddishkeit. On the other hand, Yosef is a man, you put the seed in the ground. What happens if you put the seed in the ground? Oh, that's very exciting. Put a seed in the ground, what happens? It decomposes itself. Now, what a waste. You took a good seed and you wasted it. Sitting around, nothing's happening. Nobody knows what's going on. All of a sudden, one day, there's a plant. Right? That's symbolic of an idea that germinates and is born very quietly with no fanfare. But it has significant roots in the ground, in the inner recesses of a place where nobody knows. And that's Yosef. Yosef is that man who, on the one hand, he's the reaper. He can harvest ideas. He has that perfect intellect. It's not connected to the ground, and when he's got that perfect intellect, it sows seeds into the ground. It germinates solid ideas that are quietly manifesting within the person. Aha. So now we understand this became the major difference between Yosef and the brothers. When Yaakov returned from the house of Lavan, and they're in Eretz Yisrael, they now are in the Holy Land of Israel, surrounded by Canaanites. The brothers felt that the time now is the Messianic era. It's the time for Jews to live as Jews are supposed to always have lived. It's the time for us to show our Judaism, our exuberance of Judaism, and the Jewish people need the approach of Yehuda, the man of the heart. It's time to show what our Yiddishkeit's all about, our devotion to Hashem, our dveikus to Hashem. That's how we're going to grow, that's how we're going to impact on the world, and Yehuda has to be the king now. Well, the problem is, and Yosef saw this, as more than Yehuda did, and the story shows it out. As long as Yehuda didn't live up to his potential, he can't yet be the king. Can't yet be the king. Once Yosef draws it out, and he's ready to fight for the life of Binyamin, then he is letting his emotion work in the right way, then he can be the king. Now maybe he could be, we'll see. And even though the brothers died of shame, but when they saw that Yehuda's heart was coming out, they said, oh, there's a heart, there's a heart. Now that's where it really should be. Now for sure he should be the king. And Yosef said, you know, you're all right, almost. But there's one thing you still need. You still need the intellect, even now. And they're saying why, and how does this difference get resolved? Because there's two other ideas we have to talk about very briefly. There's two very important agendas in Judaism. One is called Sur Meirah, stay away from evil, and the other is Asay Tov, do good. That's what David HaMelech says. Sur Meirah, Asay Tov, stay away from evil and do good. Within ourselves, there has to be these aspects and what we do for the world. So the Shul explains like this. The first agenda of a Jew has to be Sur Meirah. Means that a Jew has to survive the negativity of the world. He has to be able to ward off all the nonsense and mishigasim of the world. If you approach the world doing all your things with lots of exuberance, you're doing Karbach services out in the street, on Bathurst Street. Let the whole world see how we are, right? What's the world going to say? What's it going to say? There's gurus, there's cults, there's all kinds of Michiganers, and look at those Jews, a bunch of Michiganers too. Everyone's on their trip, right? Everyone's shows it, right? So that isn't really, that's not the time to show it when there's too much garbage going on in the world. It's not the time and the place. In a period of time where there's lots of nonsense and garbage in the world, you have to deal with that garbage and stay away from that. And how are you going to know to stay away from that? You got to use your brains. You got to use your brains and say, why in the world would people spend $500 for a little piece of rubber or something, that people spend money on? Use your intellect. Why would people worship someone who's beautiful? Why do we have to worship our bodies? Torah says you take care of your bodies. But a rational mind, a developed intellect would never fall for the mishigasim that's going on in society today. You stay healthy, yes, but to invest your whole life on developing a beautiful body and the top tens and thousands of dollars, that doesn't make any sense. That's not logical. Get rid of that. And when you're in the gullus, when you're in the exile, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. You can't just be exuberant about things because you don't know to appreciate your exuberance any different than their exuberance. They got their thing, I got my thing. So who said, this pluralistic world, who knows what's right? As long as everybody's happy. Yeah, I'm happy. You do what they do. So Yossi says, listen guys, we're in Egypt now. Our major function is to resist the garbage of Egypt. And the truth was, even 22 years ago in the land of Canaan, we're still surrounded by Canaanites. It's not yet the time. Emotions are not going to help us yet. If we function with emotions, we're going to get sucked up into all the other emotions that are in the world now. Right? And unfortunately, there have been branches of Yiddishkeit that use their emotions in making decisions, and they got all sucked up into non-Jewish things, and you can't even see that it's Jewish anymore because it was all emotion, it wasn't any intellect at all. So yeah, we're having an emotional trip. The guy next to me is having an emotional trip too. Who says mine's better than his? We pray in the synagogue, they go to church. You know what? People work on Saturday. Let's have synagogue on Sunday, as a movement did within the Jewish world in the early 1900s. What happened to your brain? Do you know what Shabbos is? Let your brain tell you what Shabbos is, but it was all emotional decisions over there. You have to start with the agenda. We've got to stay away from the evil, which doesn't go after outward manifestations of exuberance, but it goes to the seeds, right? It goes with the seeds that create deep roots in the ground, and that's the seichel. So in order to develop a quality of, you have to be able to identify spiritual dangers. You got to be smart enough that is the spiritual danger. What's wrong if we celebrate synagogue on Sunday, not on Shabbos? That's a danger. You can't do that. You've ripped out the fabric of Yiddish. But we feel so good, Sunday we don't have to work. Right? Then when you've identified the spiritual dangers and you're creating proper forces within yourself to be able to resist those spiritual dangers, then you're ready to be exuberant for what you're doing. Do you understand the difference? So after we've dealt with that, sure, So Yosef's the intellect. He can deal with, he's the cleanup man. He's got to look at all the garbage of the world and clean it out. So Yosef's the king when we have to resist, and you need an intellect to resist. Yehuda's the king when everything's sitting pretty in the land of Israel. We don't have to resist anymore. Then we can show our exuberance. And that's the historical function of the Mashiach ben Yosef and the Mashiach ben David. Before the ultimate Mashiach can come from David, Yehuda has to come from Yosef. Got to get rid of all the garbage. The Navi says we got to get rid of Amalek. We got to return Jews to their Judaism. Get them out of all this nonsense and return them where it's supposed to be, which eventually is in Eretz Yisrael. And that's the challenge we have right now. Right now, as Jews surrounded by Goyim everywhere, even in Eretz Yisrael, right? We're surrounded by that. We got to use our brains to survive. After that, now we're in Israel and all the garbage is filtered out, and you want to have a kingdom of heaven on earth. Yes, and let the Mashiach from David and Yehuda come by all means. And at the end of the day, who stood the test of exile better? Was it the ones with the developed intellect or with the emotions? It was the developed intellects, right? At the end of the day, Yosef really didn't fall. But Yehuda did fall because of the pressure and the struggles. And we'll see we'll see how that happens later in history too, one time. So, and the Shalah, he explains beautifully the verses, how Yosef was saying, he says 3 times I was here to save you, and he says one time to save you monetarily, another time to save you that Yehuda, you should be a kingly personality, that one day we will go to Eretz Yisrael, and one day when there's times for the Mashiach, that will help in it as well. And that's what Yosef told them, and they finally were able to hear what he had to say. He said, guys, I never wanted to be the leader permanently. It was only temporary. Don't you see? And if you look at the words now, you read the parsha, he says, Paro is the king, and we're subservient to what they want. And there's all kinds of emotional issues over here. We need the power. And then when they began to say, listen, how do you think I stayed frum for the last 22 years over here? How did I stay religious for 22 years? Isn't that most amazing? Guess what, guys? You're going to be here for another 210 years. Who's going to make it happen, guys? So at that moment of their shock, even though they want to kill him, but Yehuda developed his heart to the point that they could listen to what he had to say. And then he's finally, then under the parsha, that right there it says, in this regard, it says, then the brothers were able to speak peacefully with each other. They're finally able to hear each other, what he had to say, and then they understood that he's right. So it's terrible that it had to go 22 years. That each one was using the wrong tool to make that happen. But it's not so cut and dry that you here's a very important point I want you to walk with me and say, you only use the intellect during the times of your exile, and you only use the heart when it's the good times. Can't you say it's so decompartmentalized? Why? Because after all, who brought up Yehuda's heart potential? It was the intellect of Yosef. And who brought up Yosef's intellect? Was the emotion of Yehuda. So even though heart and mind are different potentials and represent different approaches to Judaism, but each one really fosters the other. So if a person has a good understanding of something, then he can really feel it. And if a person has feelings about something, then that will push him to try to understand it. So you need to have both, right? And that's a critical point. And so we can't just say it's one way or the other, and I only want one or the other. And because of that, the Shem Yishmuel ends off so beautifully. He said there's such a tremendous lesson for us if we want to develop Ahavas Yisrael, if we want to love other Jews. He says, because truly, there's no such thing as a Jew without good personality traits. Every Jew has good personality traits, right? But there may be big differences between one and the other, as East and West are so different from each other. But this person's particular trait may not be best suited here, but maybe in another situation it's very well suited. Maybe when we have to make very important, fiscal decisions about the future of a home. Fiscal decisions. Maybe the one with the intellect should be making those decisions. But then when we have to make a very important emotional decision about one of the children, then maybe you have to be willing to let the one who has a better sense of emotion, let them make the decision. And can't say, you're just an emotional basket case. I can never listen to you. Oh, you're so cold and calculating, and so everything has to be by the book. I can never listen to you. No. You see that each one is meant to bring out something from the other. Use your emotion to help the other, use your intellect to help the others know what to get emotional about. And you're using your emotion to help the other one to know what he should be really thinking about. You say, dear, you're a very smart man. Our son is suffering emotionally. You're smart. Figure out a solution. He's just a basket. I can't deal with it. No, you're smart. Figure out a solution. But the guy who's not emotional, what do I got to worry? He's a nutball. Forget about it, right? No, you're smart. Figure out. You can do it. You're a smart guy. And a smart guy got to say emotional. You should really get excited about this, not about that. Why are you so excited about making another cake for Shabbos? Why don't you get excited about the person who needs a carpool done for them? That's the intellect saying, use your emotion for something that makes more sense. They don't need another cake in the Shiva house. They need someone to do the carpool for them. That's the brains is telling the emotion how to act. And if you'd stop fighting with it, it says, listen, you're just a brain guy, and you have no emotion. You're worth nothing. You're just the emotional basket case. No, you're both worth something, but at the right place, you're very valuable. At the wrong place, you're doing a disservice. Maybe each one can recognize where the other one is strong and where the other one is weak. But usually it doesn't work that way. And you want to know how bad it gets? Just remember the story of Yossi and the brothers. 22 years of unnecessary suffering. And the truth of the matter is, even by the end of the day, as you'll see next week's parsha, it's so crushing, the brothers really never gave up their suspicions of Yossi. As much as there was a little bit of meeting of the minds over here and a little bit was brought out, it was never really totally done. And that really has caused the perennial destruction of the Jewish people. But clearly, as we are now steeped in a gullus where the whole way the non-Jewish world thinks and assumes that everything, these are the rules of life, is totally contrary to Torah, you definitely need the developed intellect leading. And then he's got to deal with the emotional. For example, the developed intellect says, there's certain aspects of media that cannot be allowed in a Jewish home. The intellect says it cannot be. It just can't be. You'd never have your child watch a man and woman being intimate right in front of their face. Would you ever do that? But on a TV screen, it's okay. Use your brains. Right? But on the other hand, if you're going to only use your brains, and you're going to say, okay, Jewish child, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, and you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. That kid is going to say, then I have nothing to do. Well, just learn Gemara. That isn't going to cut it. And that guy could fall into the problem when it comes Shabbos. When it comes Shabbos, he's busy, studying his Talmud. Then you need the man of emotion to say, it's Shabbos. It's a happy day. Let's sing and dance. Let's rejoice. Let's have a good meal. Let's talk to the kids. Let's show them how happy Yiddishkeit is. That's the emotional side, right? That same emotional one will say, let's bring in things to the house that shouldn't be brought in. The intellect says, no. Right. Let the intellect does rule at the end of the day. But the intellect has to appreciate that there has to be something. And that really, if you want to know the long story, that's been the whole discussion, the debate between the Hasidim and the non-Hasidim. That's what it's all been about for the last couple hundred years. We're in the worst gullus ever. We've been going on this almost 2,000 years. So what are the non-Hasidim saying? You got to have a developed intellect. You got the more Torah you know, the more you understand, the more you get it, you're smart and this and that, you're not going to fall for that thing. Well, guess what? Not everybody's so smart as you. Yossi, there's a bunch of emotional people out there. Right? So came Hasidim and said, you know what? You got to be emotionally connected to this religion. You got to enjoy the religion. And then came the non-Hasidim and said, look what you're doing. You're getting into all these exciting things. They're not going to be any different than the Polish guy who drinks at the pub and gets drunk at the pub. That's what you Hasidim are doing? You're right. You got to be careful about that too. And that's what the Vilna Gaon, his whole dispute with the Hasidim wasn't necessarily what they were doing, but it wasn't being held in check enough. He was afraid it would go to the extreme, and there'd be notice in a chassan, a guy who drinks with a Polish guy in a tavern. He says, "You want to drink, have a l'chaim? Fine, I understand. We got to take it, but you got to know Talmud too. You got to know that too. And if they don't, we got to teach them something else that they know." And that was the problem. It was Yosef and the brothers was Hasidim and Misnagdim for 150 years. They were going to kill each other. It's mamish. It played the start again. Till finally the Reform movement came up, and all of a sudden, because they couldn't... Why did the Reform movement succeed? Because the Hasidim said it's going to be intellect only. The Misnagdim said it's intellect only. The Hasidim said it's emotional only. Came along the Reform, and took advantage of that split, and all of a sudden they watched the Yidden were falling left and right. And then finally the Hasidim and the Misnagdim says, we better stop our fight because we're going to lose to those guys. And that's why the students of the Vilna Gaon and certain Hasidim, they went to Eretz Yisrael, and that's where we get that Yerushalmi type of Yiddishkeit, which really was kind of a healthy synthesis. And finally the world is hopefully getting around to this idea, you got to have both. Any Hasidus without any real Talmud fails, and any Litvish approach to Yiddishkeit without any Hasidus fails also. And you have to have a healthy sense of the two. You just can't be looking at the Talmud all day long. And you can't be singing and dancing all day long. You have to have a healthy balance. It's very hard, and plug for our shul. That's what we try to have, that balance. We really try to have that balance. In the morning you learn Hasidus, and at night you learn Gemara. You got to have both. You have to when we learn, but then when we daven, we sing. When we daven, it's got to be enjoyable. You got to have that balance. You can only have that balance if everybody appreciates the other strengths that are brought to the table. Hashem should help us that the Mashiach ben Yosef should finish up his job very quickly, and the Mashiach ben David will come b'mheira v'yameinu. Amen. Amen.